Live. We are live on Facebook Live. We are live on YouTube with my big, 18 subscriber count. And today we are with Joey English. I want to introduce you to him. He was at our landlord luncheon last year, and I asked how many people know Joey, and one person raised their hand. And he's going to be here this month, and I really want you guys to get to know Joey because he is in my mind, probably the brightest creative person active locally in our area. And there's so much to learn from him. So want to get him on the podcast, our live stream, and just go over his background, his history, because he's going to be at the landlord luncheon this month, which is going to be March 19th from noon to 1:30 at the Fountainhead Tap Room. And he's going to be talking about lease options, but that is for that day. Today, we want to introduce Joey and talk a little bit about yourself and what's your background. How did you get started in this wild, wild world of real estate?
Oh, how did we get started? So, truly, the way that we got started is I didn't get into grad school. So I've got a bachelor's degree in biology of all things, and I got it from Kennesaw State. And when I went to, this is going to sound like one of those things where what had happened was I got a D in an English class when I was at Berry, and I didn't realize I needed to retake that. So I went to go to apply for my degree, and they're like, guess what? You got to come back another semester, take entry level English, plus we're going to make you take the freshman class that all the freshmen at Kennesaw State have to take. And I was like, yay. So that was great. I didn't get to graduate on time. And so that messed up us going into graduate school because I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. Who knew? But anyway, so when that happened, my wife, Ashley, she was in the teaching program up at Dalton State. And I said, hey, look, this isn't going to work out time-wise. I was like, why don't you go through the teaching program and get through that? Then you go to work, and then we'll flip-flop, and I'll go back to construction. She said, okay, that works. And so I went back to construction. Well, that was in 2008. And so shortly thereafter in 2008, work got really tough in the construction field. Prior to that, we were building custom houses. When I say we were building, I wasn't the guy that was in charge of building. I was on a crew framing and doing all kinds of stuff associated with the houses. And long story short, new builds went to zero. They probably went to negative.
I remember it was June of 2007. The market just ran into a wall and stopped everywhere.
So I got blessed, though. I got in with an investor down in Atlanta, and me and three of my buddies were his rehab crew. And we did everything on all of his houses, whether it was a flip or a rental. We did everything that didn't require a license, and then probably some stuff that should have. And so anyway, dude's name was Andy. Andy spoke about money like something I'd never seen before. See, we grew up poor, and the way that I grew up, money was something that loomed over you. And the way that Andy spoke about money, Andy spoke about it like it was a material. It was just something that he used, kind of like how we use 2x4s, how we use paint. And I just marveled at that. And I went to Andy and I said, Andy, how did you come to learn to think about money like this? And he was a great guy. He spent some time talking to me. And at the end of it, he's like, do you like to read? I said, yes, sir. And he said, go check out Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You'll love this book. It's by Robert Kiyosaki. And I was like, okay. And I went home and ordered it that night. And dude, I tore that book up. And as I got through the book, I was like, I just had a total mindset shift, because for me, being in construction was awesome. It gave me purpose. It made me feel good. You know, it was a man's thing. I was over there and I could create things with my hand, and it was awesome. But what I saw is that most of the guys that were older that were in my field all had bad backs, bad teeth, and were complaining about gout. But you know what they could do? They could work hard. And I'm a proponent of working hard, but I was seeing that working hard didn't get you to an end goal. They were still having to work, and they were still talking about they could keep up with the young bucks. But the problem was that I was the young buck, and they weren't keeping up with us, and they were hurting, and they had no retirement. And so when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I saw, oh my goodness, this is the way. This is how we can do this. And so me and Ashley made the decision, hey, we're going to go full throttle into real estate. Problem was that we were two broke kids coming out of college with a mound of student loan debt. We were so unreliable that when she and I got married, we couldn't get a landlord to rent to us because I'd been living at home. She'd
Wow.
been living at home. We had no verifiable income whatsoever. And I thought I was going to have to rehab my mom and dad's basement for me and my new wife to live in when we got married. So that's where we were at. And as it turns out, we talked about subject to deals once upon a time. My very first subject to deal happened because we bought my wife's mom's house via subject to. Now, we didn't know it was a subject to, and we blundered it up like crazy. But she told us, she's like, look, I'm tired of cutting the grass out here. I'm going to go move into an apartment. This house is either going back to the bank or y'all can move in and start making the payments on it. And so that's how we got our very first subject to deal. But anyway, so being broke and not knowing what to do, we had to figure out a way to be able to invest in real estate. And so I started reading about creative financing strategies and things like that. And I met Don Babb up at, yeah, you know that name. So I met Don and I think Eugene Finley, he's another guy out of Dalton, at a first-time home buyer thing they were having at Dalton State. And I was going there because I was like, maybe I can pick up some strategies on how to buy a house.
You met Don is a talker, so I'm sure he was just talking away at you.
Dude, it was a blessing. So I very much was fond of Don. Don was a great guy.
He was always very good to me. He did some things for me that other people, didn't do. So,
and he was like larger than life. And so, but he also helped point us in the right direction. He told us about a RIA, because I didn't even know what a RIA was at the time, down in Adairsville, put on by a couple, Bill and Kim Cook. And so me and Ashley started going down there. And so tell the people what you're about to have to do. You said you hadn't done one of these in years. What are you about to have to do?
Hadn't done what?
You said right before we got on, you said, man, I'm about to have to do something I hadn't done in a long time.
Oh, having to do a set out.
Tell them what a set out is, because everybody might not know that.
Right. So if you have a rental property and the tenant doesn't make the payments, you've got to go to the magistrate court. You file a dispossessory, and then they either answer or don't answer. If they answer, you go to court. If they don't answer, you can get what's called a sit out. If you go to court and win, you can also get what's called a sit out. And what that is it gives you permission to set a date and time that you can physically go to the property with the sheriff, 3 or 4 guys, and remove their belongings from the property to the street corner. And
that's something every landlord loves doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Every landlord just feels great about that, right?
So what's interesting about that was when I was at Bill and Kim's RIA, they were having it at their house. Bill was talking about having to do a sit out. And he said, this is the first one I've had to do in 18 years of being a landlord. And he was just sitting there lamenting it. And Kim was sitting like right over here. And I said, Kim, she didn't know me from Adam yet. I said, Kim, do you think he might need some help with that? And she's like, I don't know, go ask him. And so I didn't know how I was going to be valuable to Bill. So Bill and Kim were the top dogs in our area. They had the name, everything. I mean, they were great. They still are great people. And I wanted to figure out how I could do something to be able to earn some of his time and some of her time and to be around them so that I could learn what a real estate investor was. And so I went up to Bill and I said, hey, you're having to do that sit out this week. And he said, yes, I'm having to do it tomorrow. And I said, okay, can I come help you? And he said, I can't pay you. And I said, you don't have to pay me. I'll come and I'll work. And I want to hang out with you and see what it's like. He's like, you don't understand. I can't pay you. And I said, I don't want you to pay me. I'll work for you for free. I just want to see what real estate investing is like. He's like, you'll work for free. And I said, yes, sir. I will work for free. He's like, I'm not going to buy you lunch, man. I'm telling you, this is going to be hot, stinky, sweaty, and we got to get this done. And I said, I will look forward to it. I just want to come and be around you. And he said, you'll work for free. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, okay, be at my house tomorrow at 8:00. And dude, I couldn't hardly sleep that night. I was so excited. This was like my end. I was getting to go see what real estate investing was right by the top dog in my area. I was just like, woo. And so I got up there and we went and we worked and we had the best time. I got to cut up with, I got to ride one-on-one with Bill everywhere that we went. And he's like, ask me questions. And I was like, Bill, I don't even know what to ask you. I just want to see what this is like. And so I was like, what questions should I be asking? And that was a really good question, because then he started telling me stuff I should be thinking about.
Yeah.
But anyway, the whole thing is I got that from Robert Kiyosaki, because he talked about work to learn, not to earn. And that one thing endeared me to Bill and Kim, because I was willing to give in order to get. And
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So now that you're sort of in the reverse position, you're experienced. You can probably see from their perspective, the house one actually come up and actually willing to put in the work to actually learn is such a rare thing.
Very much.
And actually, if you're experienced, you kind of want that. You want to be able to help somebody who shows that, but it's so rare.
No, most of the time what people do is they say, hey, can I get a bit of your time? Or, hey, can I pick your brain? Or, hey, can I take you out to lunch? And I've even had people want me to take them out to lunch and then buy their lunch, and so it's, I've had one guy ever say, hey, can I come work with you? I just want to work to learn. And turns out his name was Joey, and he was from Calhoun. And so he turned out that this wasn't going to be his path. He decided he wanted to be a policeman. And so he's a sheriff's deputy now, and he's an awesome guy. But either way, I was like, yes, I'm going to have somebody do it that's named Joey. And that's awesome, because there's not a lot of Joeys in the world. But either way. So Bill turned us on to creative deal structuring. He helped me to be able to understand how to do all kinds of different things, from Lonnie deals to subject to deals to leasing, lease with options, which we're going to be talking about, owner financing. He introduced me to my first private money lender. I mean, legitimately, my landlord system is built majority on what Bill taught me. So Bill has a teacher named Dave Tinley. David Tinley has a wonderful program called Hassle-Free Property Management, and that's who Bill's main teacher was on that. And so I have David's teachings where Bill overlaps, and then I've got my own set of stuff on top of it. But I always tell everybody, I call Bill and Kim my rich dad and my rich mom from the book, because they were the ones that showed me down that path and helped me to be able to get there. So I wouldn't be here without them.
Yeah, I think back then, I guess because I'm older now, but I really enjoyed that time period from like 2005 to about 2012, 13, like Bill and Kim. I remember I went to one of their like third or fourth meetings that didn't have a lot of people. And then like within a few years, they have like a couple hundred people showing up. And this is in Adairsville, Georgia. This is not Chattanooga or Atlanta.
But it pulled people because there was nothing like it. And so, I mean, like, you and I've been talking about the need for being able to do creative deal structuring and to be able to talk about it openly. And so that was a need that they filled, and it brought all kinds of people around, because too many people get into the habit of, I need to go get a house under contract through a realtor, then I'm going to go and get an appraisal done, and then hopefully be able to get a mortgage on it. And that is real estate investing. And there's all kinds of ways to be able to do that.
And a lot of people are not meeting sellers face to face anymore either. They're relying on wholesalers, they're relying on realtors, or trying to find something on the MLS, because it was, really easy the past few years with all this appreciation and rental appreciation. So
that'll get you lazy, won't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then another difference I think back then is we had to like physically go to these meetings. We had to put time into going these things and actually spend money for all these seminars and stuff. Whereas nowadays information is a click away on YouTube. I don't think people value it as much, and then they don't combine the experience and work with that knowledge.
Totally. And if it's so easy to get, not putting the value on it, then you don't apply it either. And so there's a whole lot of people that talk about real estate investing that never actually do it. And so do the thing, have the power. That's what you got to do. Get out there and get after it.
What's the, so I always tell people the biggest thing you need to do is start making offers. Like just get in front of a seller and make an offer, and start putting some work into it. What do you advise people to do when they're trying to get started? That
is the number one thing that you have to do. I mean, like, and I'm not even talking about, you don't even have to necessarily put offers in yet, because I'll tell you, I'll never forget this. It was in Dalton. We were out riding the pre-foreclosures, and most of y'all don't even know what pre-foreclosures are because they've been non-existent for the past few years. But we were out door knocking. We would go and map out all the pre-foreclosures, and we were doing it.
We did the same back then.
And we go out there and knock on all the doors. And I remember that it was me and Ashley, and we went and knocked on this little Hispanic lady's door. And she came to the door in her pajamas, and we told her, hey, we'd like to talk to you. We understand that you're in foreclosure. We might be able to help you. And she was like, come on in. And she sat there and she told us all about the problems she was having. And we were sitting there trying to figure out strategies that we could do to help her to be able to overcome those issues. All right. It turns out we couldn't buy the house. The reason why we couldn't buy the house was multifaceted. The main one being is that we didn't have access to private money yet. And so we wouldn't have been able to do it. But either way, we were able to point her down a direction towards a loan modification that was something that people didn't know too much about back then. And that got her in a better situation. But when you go and you meet with somebody, your job is not necessarily to make an offer. Your job is to solve their real estate problems. And so what you do is you say, hey, how can I help you today? What's going on? You know, why would you be selling such a nice house as this? That's what Peter Fortunato would always say. And actually, I was having a conversation with my assistant, Madison, today. She's like, but Joey, what if it's a crap house and you come up and you say a nice house like this? Are they going to feel like it's condescending? And I'm like, you have to pick and choose your words a little bit there. You know, if you're over there and you know it's obviously a dump, you don't say, why are you selling such a nice house as this? You just say, why are you selling this house? I mean, why would you do that? You know, and so ask lots of questions while you're with the people, and all of a sudden you can find out what the issue is. And a lot of times people will say that, you know, I can sit down with somebody and they will tell me what their mortgage balance is. They'll tell me what their house payment is. They'll tell me how much they are behind. They'll tell me about how much they owe their spouse that they're getting divorced from. They'll tell me about, oh man, I've had some people tell me some very interesting stuff that I did not need to know. But the reason why I'm saying that is because people think that if you get in front of people and you start trying to talk to them, they're gonna be like, oh man, that's none of your business. I've only had that happen like once ever. And I've met with a lot of people. When you go to the doctor or when you go to the mechanic or when you go to anybody that you have a problem and they start asking you questions, you look at them and say, man, I'm comfortable answering that. It ain't none of your business. That's not what happens.
Right.
What happens is you're like, yes, please help me. Let me show you where it hurts. And you've got to ask the questions to find out where the real estate hurt is in order to find out, can you help? And if you can help them, if you help enough people, you'll have all you ever need. That's the answer to that one. So that's a good one.
And I think being able to look deeper than price, because the seller's going to tell you they want X amount of dollars, but okay, what are they using that money for? And is there other ways that you can help them? And I think that's the art form to all this, is coming up with those solutions that's outside of, okay, I want this amount of money. Like, why do you need that money? How can I help you get what you need? You know, that's the art form to all this that I really enjoy.
Let me tell you about that one. So and that's a great thing to ask them what they need the money for, because if they need the money to go and buy another car, or if they're trying to get into a different house, or what they're doing with it, you might be able to help with that side of it too, and actually facilitate the deal and be able to come up with what you need on the other side of it. But a workaround that y'all can use, you can stick this in your pocket if you want to, is that if somebody says, well, what does it matter? That's my business what I do with the money. You can look at them and say, well, look, I got the money in my pocket right now. If you're going to use it just to go buy drugs, I'm not going to enable you to go do that. You know, if you're going to do it for something different, we can talk about that. But no, I don't want to just give you money to go buy drugs. No, I'm not going to do that. This is what I'm going to do with it. And they'll totally turn that around. And so you get to find out, hey, is there something you can help with on that side of it?
Oh, that's a good tip.
The other thing is when do you need the money? Do you need it all now? And so a lot of times people are like, no, I don't need it all now. And if you can find out, like, for instance, how long have you been living in the house? Well, I've been there, we've been here for about 1.5 years. Oh, really? Well, did you know, we've had some appreciation in the last 1.5 years, but did you know that if you stay a full 2 years, according to the section 121 of the IRS Tax Code, that all the profit that you make off of this, up to $500,000, would be tax-free? What? Yeah. Do you want? Can I tell you a way that we can facilitate that? Well, yeah, I'd love to. And that can move you into a lease option situation, which we're going to be talking about on March 19th, right?
Yep. Speaking of,
I talk fast. Did I make that clear, or do I need to re-say that?
No, it made total sense to me. But
okay.
I've been in this a while too, so it makes sense to me. So,
let me rephrase what I'm saying there.
Yeah.
Okay, so the if you live in a house 2 out of the last 5 years, then when you go to sell it, any profit that you make off of it is tax free. If you're single, it's $250,000. If you are married, it's $500,000. All right, that's section 121 of the IRS tax code. And so what that means is that this person I was meeting with, they'd only been in there for a year and a half. They've got to make it 6 more months to get that money tax free. Otherwise, that's going to go towards their income taxes, and nobody likes paying taxes. And so that is a way that if you can help them put off selling their house until the 2-year mark, they can get that money tax free. Okay. Yeah. And so that is a negotiation tactic that you can use in order to get options on a property and move on down the road with it. So that helps them, and that helps you get in front of your competitors. So that's what I meant by that.
Yeah. Talking about motivated sellers, what's the sort of the wildest reasons you've heard for someone wanting to sell their house?
Think on that one.
I can tell you the one that always stuck out in my head is a lady wanted to sell her house so she could downsize and not have to live with her kids anymore.
I've had that. Let's see. What is the wildest reason? Most of them are normal stuff, dude.
Yeah.
I had somebody one time that wanted to sell their house and get rid of it because they wanted to buy a Harley.
Yeah, I've had I had one time they were selling the house. It was actually it was, I think, a Habitat for Humanity house that was built for them, and they had just beaten the thing up like terribly. So they wanted to sell the house to buy an RV. So that was what they were doing. Paid off house.
People want to do that. Most of the time, it's they don't want to do the rehab on the house, or they're just tired of making the payments. I had one of them that was living across from family and wanted to get away from the family. So that's kind of what you're talking about. I can't think of any really cool stories off the top of my head with sales. I've had some interesting stories with them, but none of them are like, hey, this is a really cool reason to sell.
So out of the deals you've done, what would you say, because everybody likes to brag about their good deals, what would you say was like the worst deal that you learned the most from?
Moore's Ferry. Okay. So Moore's Ferry was a bank repo. I think this was like probably 2016-ish. And what year was the election year? Is it 16?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't follow politics as well, to be honest with you.
Well, so it was shortly thereafter I stopped it. So this is part of it. So everything had been going good. We bought this house. It was a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,000 square foot brick ranch with a 2-car garage on 8 acres with a big slab down at the bottom of it that could be made into a big pole barn. And when I say big pole barn, I'm talking about 30 by 40 pole barn. And we got the entire place for $40,000. Okay.
Nice.
So it was a good deal. We did a jam up rehab on it. We went through that. It had a strange thing going on with it. When I got in the house, the floors were very uneven. And come to find out what it was a brick house, but I'm pretty sure somebody moved the house in. And so what happened is when they moved the house in, whoever the brick mason was, put all the piers in the house 1 brick high. So what that meant is that now that the house was sitting in there, they didn't have support going through the center beam like they were supposed to. So instead of having a beam going through like this, they had a 2x6 sitting on top of the piers. And so it'd be on a pier, not on a pier, on a pier, not on a pier. And anyway, so we just went in and built a girder system underneath it and leveled the floor out. All was good. We built the 30 by 40 pole barn because it's out in the country. And we were all in for like $90,000 or $95,000, including the purchase price. I didn't know how much it was going to sell for. So I went and called the appraiser in town and said, hey, will you tell me how much this house will sell for? And he went and he looked, did everything on it. I wanted to sure enough, he bet you appraisal instead of just a realtor's opinion. And he came back with $180,000. And so I was like, dude, I'm gonna make $90,000 on this. What? That was huge, specifically in 2016.
Yeah, yeah.
We got it. We put it on market. It immediately went under contract for full price. And then the seller backed out for no reason. They're like, what happened? Then we put it back on market. It went under contract again. And then the seller backed out. I'm like, what happened? Dude, we had a next door neighbor that was coming by asking, had we fixed the foundation problem over there?
Wow.
So we had to start advertising that there was no foundation issue, because every time we posted it anywhere, someone would say, hey, isn't that the house with the foundation issue? Everybody around that area knew that was the house with the foundation issue. It didn't have a foundation issue. The floor system wasn't properly supported, and we had to support the floor system.
Right.
Anyway, it took us a year and a half to sell that house. Right.
Wow.
A flip does not take that long. And back then it definitely didn't take that long.
Yeah.
So remember I said it was worth 180,000, right? We backed it down, got it all the way to where we sold it for $135,000.
So no one was willing to put under contract and just do an inspection on it to figure it out?
Dude, we had that. There was some of that. Then we started getting weird stuff. The final contract that we lost at the higher price was a truck driver. I'm talking about, we had one guy that was moving here from California, and he was willing to buy the house. He loved the house. Everything was great about the house. But then when they went to go, he was moving inside of his company. He was getting transferred over here. And when he got his moving package, his salary was actually lower than it was out in California. And he couldn't get his head wrapped around the fact that stuff was so much cheaper here that his salary was going to be more than it was out there. And so he killed the deal, lost his earnest money. Who cares? It was $1,000. That didn't help us out. But the truck driver guy, he had been doing everything right. His wife, family, all loved the house. They'd been praying about the house. This was perfect. It was awesome. And man, he'd been working for his company for however many years it was to be able to buy the truck. All right. And so he had just bought the truck the previous year, still working for the company, doing the same loads. It's just instead of being an employee, now he's an owner operator. And they didn't find that out. Somebody didn't find it out until all the way at the end. So he hadn't been self-employed for 2 years. Therefore, he could not qualify for his loan.
Wow.
Right. So it started out with being snake bit. We started lowering the price, and then just crazy stuff happened with the people. Yeah. So the final thing that happened, we got under contract for 135, and I'm sitting at the closing table, finally offloading this house. We started calling this house More Scary instead of More Sperry. And I asked him, I said, how'd you do on your appraisal? He said, you ain't going to believe it. I said, try me. He said, this thing appraised for $185,000. I said, well, you did good, didn't you? My stomach. But what I learned through that is you find what you're looking for. Okay. So people started talking way back in 2016 that, hey, we're about to have the housing bubble. It's about to bust. We're going to bust. And I was listening to that. I was listening to talk radio. You remember that?
Yep.
I was listening to talk radio. The world was going to end. I was eat up with all kinds of anxiety about stuff. And I was finding it inside of this house because this house wasn't performing. Therefore, the world's about to end.
Right.
And I learned from that, not just with real estate, but in your life in general. You have to tune out what's going on all out here. This is a bunch of noise. This is so much noise. Going back to the listening to WSB stuff, my best friend was getting married from when I was in high school. And so I drove all the way back down to Brunswick, Georgia, and I laid tile in his house for his wedding present. They don't have WSB down there. And so when I got back up above Macon, coming back home, all of a sudden I turned on WSB, and it was like I never left the conversation. So I'd been gone for a week, and I didn't miss a beat. And I was like, this is nothing but some kind of entertainment. This isn't real. And so I turned it off. And so people like to get all excited about what's happening all around them. They like to look at all kinds of different markets, and they let that dictate what their reality is. But the truth is that in any market, any time, any area, you can find somebody with a circumstance that you can help. Okay. It is possible. There are people out there that are still needing they're behind on their payments. There are still people out there that have lost their jobs. There are still people out there that have inherited a house they didn't want to have. There are still people out there with medical bills and all kinds of different things that by taking that house off their back, you can help them put them in a better situation. I got to be honest. One of the coolest things about being a real estate investor to me is when I go and I meet with a seller and they've had this tremendous emotional burden on them. And you say, I've got this, I can take that house off of you. And you watch that just get lifted off of them. And dude, I've had people break down and cry on me, not believing that, hey, we were able to do this, and then being just so overcome that this is done. And it's awesome. And that to me is one of the coolest things about being a real estate investor. And you can do that in any market at any time. If you get out there and you ask the questions and you meet with sellers and you try to figure out, how can I help you? And that's what I learned off of that one. If I was paying attention to all the stuff that was out there, it made me not good on the inside. If I turn that stuff off and focus right here, right now in my world, I can make my world a better place.
That's really solid advice. How do you keep your ecosystem around you like positive and I guess in a forward momentum state?
You have to choose who you hang out with, and you have to choose what you put into your brain. I believe in the power of positivity, so much so that I believe that the ladies that when I was born, you know, they went over there and they pricked my finger and they did my blood type. And I think that the girls must have hit the wrong button when they did it on accident, because they blood typed me B negative. And the problem with that is I tend to be positive. And so there had to have been a mistake there. So when I get around people that are being derogatory, I try to flip the conversation. I try to exert positivity there. And if I can't, and I can't do it quickly, I'll find a reason to excuse myself to go over and find a different place to be around. Okay, so that's one thing. You have to choose who you're around regularly and make sure that they are people that are going to be ones that uplift you. You have to choose what books you're going to put into your head, what podcasts you listen to. What if you're at that time in 2016, I was listening to stuff about end of the world stuff and podcasts about prepping and things like that.
And all that stuff only gotten worse now. Like the division and everything out there, like it's trying to suck you in, and there's no. I don't know.
People are good people, man. People tend to be good people, and people tend to do the right thing. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And I'll tell y'all something that's kind of funny, just to show you. For the longest time, we didn't have a key to my house. That means we didn't lock our door. Yeah. Because we just didn't know where it was. We had one and then it went missing. And so we're like, well, okay, it doesn't matter. And so the only reason why we have one now is because I changed the doorknobs when I changed the door. And so we now have keys. But here's the thing. The only time we lock our doors is at night. And that has to do with keeping our kids in versus keeping people out. Because I just want I've got an 18-month-old and a 3, almost 4-year-old. And if they decide, hey, I want to get up and go play outside in the night, that's not a good thing. But anyway, you have to control who's around you. You have to control what you're putting into your head. And you got to feed yourself with the good, the pure, the positive, and the powerful. And making time for that on a daily basis is very, very important. And that's nothing new. Zig Ziglar's been teaching us that for years. Yeah. And it still holds true today. He says that, you know, just like bathing, you have to bathe your brain in positivity on a regular basis. And if you don't, you'll turn sour. So just be careful who you get your information from, and be careful who you allow to influence what your reality is.
Let me ask you this. So earlier you mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that the person you were talking about, the investor, talked about money as a material.
Andy.
Yeah. So how did you learn to manage money correctly? Because there's a lot of people who can do real estate deals, but then don't manage the money correctly or make mistakes and go belly up. So what is it about managing money that keeps you in the business long term?
Okay, so it's been a fail forward, not so fast, truthfully. So part of growing up poor means that I don't have an affinity for things. So we don't typically, we live below our means regularly. For instance, my house payment's $475. I don't move because my house payment's $475. And so could we move? Yeah. Could we afford a whole lot more? Yeah. But still, why do we need to? But we started out with taking a course in bookkeeping for QuickBooks. And so Ashley was doing all of our books. And then after our first child was born, we decided that was not the greatest idea because not that she didn't have the capacity to do it, her time was needed over here and she couldn't keep us up to date as much as needed. So we went to the lady that trained her and said, hey, will you be our bookkeeper? And she said, yes. And she was our bookkeeper for a long time. So we've always been really good about data entry, but the money management was not so great. The reason why the money management was not so great was because I never took any classes on business. I never took any classes on finance except for like economics, but we were not doing great in 2018 and 2019. I'd gotten myself in a problem. What my problem was is that we would go over on a rehab and I'd just take it from the money from the next rehab and put it towards it. And then we'd go over on that and begin. And then it was like, dude, we're loaning money to be
investors make that mistake too. Cause I did it like way back in the day. You start counting on money you got coming in way out here.
And then it don't.
If something happens, exactly. There's the people factor.
I was doing that. And then this happened more than once. We'd get a bunch of money built up and I'd be like, oh, we got a house closed. I'm going to go buy a house. And so I'd go buy the house expecting for the one that we were selling to sell. And then it would like not happen, just like you said. And so in 2019 was the worst year we ever had. And I lost $72,000 in our flip company. All right, I went to Kelly, my CPA, and I said, she told me we lost $72,000. And I was like, that's a paper loss, right? Because all the rentals. She's like, no, Joey. You spent $72,000 more than you brought in your flip company. And I was like, wow, how did we do that? And what had happened was that year I'd gotten around a mastermind where people were doing a bunch of deals and I was going to ramp up, dude. I was going to do awesome. And so for me, we were doing somewhere between 8 to 10 deals a year. That was very comfortable for us. And I was going to do more than double that. We were going to do 26 deals. We were going to do 2 a month. No, it's not 2 a month. What is that? It's a little over 2 a month. Yeah. So by the second quarter in 2019, I had purchased 13 houses. Problem was that I didn't have the infrastructure in order to get those things rehabbed and get them turned out. And we about lost our butt off of it. And so through that process, I met a dude named Dave Richter. Dave Richter is the founder of Simple CFO. They do fractional CFO services. And if you've never looked them up before, I highly suggest looking them up. He also wrote a book that is a secondary book to Mike Michalowicz's book, Profit First. Dave wrote one called Profit First for Real Estate Investors. And I highly recommend checking that out. And if you read chapter 2 and 3, you might recognize somebody in there.
Probably myself.
No, it's me. Seriously, that's our story.
Oh, yeah.
So,
okay.
What happened was that I found out that I was really good at speaking real estate investor. And I understood some stuff associated with QuickBooks, but I didn't speak QuickBooks. Jackie, who was my accountant, she was my bookkeeper. She spoke QuickBooks really well, but she didn't speak real estate investor. And so I was telling her to do stuff that was wrong for QuickBooks. And what was happening was when we were running a flip, because you get a profit per deal, I thought that everything associated with the flip was supposed to be on our profit and loss. So when you put stuff into QuickBooks and you spit out a equation or spit out a report on it, if you got all that stuff on the profit and loss, you don't get the true answer that you need, which is, how's my business doing today? Instead, what's supposed to happen is that when you're running a flip, everything's supposed to be on your balance sheet. And once you sell that property, that's when the profit or loss happens for the company and it gets moved over to your profit and loss. So the profit and loss is for your company, and the balance sheet is for all the other stuff, including loans and things like that. I didn't know that. And so what was happening was I could never get an answer as to how are we doing right now, because we had to wait until tax time to be able to figure it out. And we always file an extension. So I was not getting my taxes done until a year and a half later type deal. And anyway, we were doing poorly. David came in. Not only did he fix that where we were putting it on, and so all of a sudden when you spit out a profit and loss, you can say, oh, this is how the company's doing today. Woohoo, that's awesome. But he also helped me implement something that is the profit first system. And the profit first system is kind of like Dave Ramsey's envelope system for business. And dude, that was massive. The reason why that was massive is because I don't know if any of y'all other investors have been this way, but the way that Joey got paid is Joey paid all the bills and paid all the people. And if there was any money left over, Joey got a paycheck. And that would happen haphazardly. And something they don't tell you about real estate investing is you often go like 6 months without a paycheck, sometimes longer. And so that'll kill you if you're not used to that. And so, but with what David showed me in Profit First, we started putting money aside for the owner to get paid, because I was the most valuable employee that we have, because without me, most of the time, the business would fold. And so I should be compensated for that. And then we had an account for the profit, and then we had an account for our operating expense, and then we had an account for this and an account for that. And all of a sudden, we were in charge of our money. And we could see where it was all going. And it was like, okay, well, this goes over here and this goes over here. And no, you can't put that money over here and commingle it, because those two things don't go together. And then all of a sudden, we were really, truly managing our cash, and we could see it on a day-to-day basis. And then we started doing something else crazy. We started being like, okay, well, we made this much this last year doing this. What can we do next year? And then what do we got to do per quarter? And so instead of it being a profit per deal situation, we were looking at projecting for the year and projecting for multiple years, and then started doing interesting things like putting aside charitable donations. So I've got aspirations to start a religious camp called Camp Yahweh. And so we've been putting money aside for that this whole time, and it's growing awesome. And so Dave helped us to be able to do that through both the CFO services and through the Profit First system. And so if y'all don't know what those are, I highly recommend checking out both of them.
Yeah, I read Profit First last year, and
yeah,
I've read a lot of financial books in the past, Richest Man in Babylon, like different things like that. But once I read that book, I was like, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah.
It's I've been putting it in because money management's not been one of my strong points at all.
Either.
I'm sort of like, let's just go do this thing and I'll figure out the money as I go. And this past couple of years, I was like, okay, I'm getting old. This is not working. So I got to figure out a different way. And the Profit First seems to be working pretty well right now.
I love it. I mean, it really does. It's made a big difference.
Yeah. My focus has been on cash flow too. So that's why I started building the property management company the past few years, because there's not a lot of cash flow in real estate, and people who don't prepare for that or have a spouse that has an income, it's sort of I don't think people take that into consideration, that cash flow, like you said, you can go 6 months without a check. And if you don't prepare for that, you're out of business.
Right.
One interesting thing. So I was at the lunch meeting with you recently, and one of the things that I noticed you did that I don't see at other meetings or other people talk about is the financial calculator.
Yeah.
So when did you start using a financial calculator in your business, and how do you use it in your business as far as analyzing things?
That's a great question. So the person that I learned financial calculator from, oh my gosh, his name went away. Gary Johnston. There we go. Gary Johnston teaches a course called Financial Freedom. And then he also teaches one called It's Money, Not Math. And he has a wonderful way of not just teaching you how to use the calculator, but to be able to use it to make sense in life. And so I'll give you, for instance, when I got back from right before we were going to his class the very first time, I had a little single wide. It was a cheap single wide that we purchased. I think our total purchase price was like $7,000, and we were all in for like $15,000 on the house. Okay, so that's how cheap it is. And the AC had stopped. And my mindset was, we were about to put it on market. We'll just buy some window units. Or actually, we had window units sitting in the building. We'll just put some window units in and rock and roll with it. But I went ahead and got a price on how much it was going to cost to be able to get an AC fix on it. It was like, I don't know, something like $2,000 or something like that. Anyway, when I got back from Gary's thing, I was like, all right, if we have central heat and air, will that increase our rent price? And it turned out it would. And it was something like, at the time, like $75, something like that. It was pretty big back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, if this makes me $75 a month, and this is how much it costs to get it fixed, what kind of return is this on my money? And it came out to a 23% return on my investment. And I was like, You mean to tell me that by buying an AC, I'll be able to get 23% return on investment on my money? There's not a lot of things that do that in this world. And so what Gary allows you to do is he allows you to look at all of your purchases as investments, because they really are, and then see, how are you performing on that? And is this a good idea? And so that AC was just an example. And it has continued to be more than that, because we've been able to continue to raise the prices on that place and been able to go further and further. And we haven't had any issues with the AC. And so that was a sound investment decision. Another thing I'll have you look at is like, if you want to take your investment dollars and go invest it in something, you might want to look at investing and paying your credit card debt off first, because you're paying out whatever it is, 28% or something like that. So the best investment you can make financially is to go pay those off, and you're paying yourself back that now by not having to pay it out, if that makes sense. So that's one way we look at it. We look at it on how long it takes for us to get our money back whenever we're doing owner finance deals. We evaluate different trailer deals whenever we're doing those, because I play with mobile homes hard and heavy too. And yeah, it's just, it allows you to be able to see things in a different standpoint.
So you do the Lonnie deals. Do you do them in parks where you're not the owner of the land, or do you do the deals where you're just the owner of the land and sell the trailer separately?
So I haven't done a Lonnie deal in quite some time. All
Okay.
right. So Lonnie, if y'all don't know what a Lonnie deal is, I'll tell you what it is real quick. I love them, by the way. Lonnie deals are where you buy a mobile home on a rented lot, you pay cash for it, and then you turn around and you sell it and offer owner financing. Okay. So a typical Lonnie deal used to be for us, we'd spend about $3,000 buying the house, and then we turn around, do no work on it, and offer it with owner financing. We'd get about $500 to $1,000 down, and then we we would sell it to the people on time for 42 months at $300 a month. And so the long and the short of it is that you get all your money back within the first year, and then the next 3.5 years was pure profit. So that is a really good deal. And those things would have over 100% return. So
yeah, that's why I mentioned them, because I know the rates of returns on like these smaller cash deals are much higher than they are on houses where the numbers are larger. Smaller
even with
profit,
mobile homes on land,
return.
it's much higher. Okay. So like, here's a for instance. We have one that I just got over on Fog Road, and we're going to be all in for $75,000. Okay. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, going to be completely renovated for $75,000. All right. When we get through with that thing will rent out for $1,200 a month. All right. If you bought a house right now, could you find one for $75,000?
Not in average condition, probably.
Could you find one that you are completely all in for $75,000?
Right.
No, you can't. And then on top of that, would it rent for that much?
No.
Dollar for dollar, I have never found anything that compares to mobile homes. Mobile homes are like the most awesome.
And they still appreciate, actually.
They do appreciate.
A lot on the foundation. They appreciate. Like
they do.
Say back in 2019, it'd be worth 55,000. Now they're worth 150,000. You know.
Let me tell you about Show Plate. So how much time do we have?
Let's see, we got about 10 minutes left.
About 10 minutes. Okay. Shope Lake, we bought in like 2012, 2013. We bought it at auction. It was a big double wide. I'm talking about, it was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,000 square foot double wide. And we bought it for $15,000 at the auction. And then I don't remember how much we had all into it, but I'm going to say like 25, 28, something like that. We rented it to the same people from the beginning of 2013 all the way up until like the tail end of 2020. We had those people in there for over 8 years, however it adds up when I calculated it. All right. And so whenever we first started renting it out, we were only renting it out for like $650, $675. Well, as it turns out, I don't know if those people got on drugs or what, but it was during COVID. And so I like to go and see my houses. But during COVID, we weren't supposed to be going and seeing our houses. They skipped out on us. And I've had 2 houses be hurt in my 12 years of being a landlord. And this was one of them during COVID. And I think the people got on drugs. A tree fell on the house, and they removed the tree, but they didn't call me and tell me about it. And it was leaking in the master bathroom, and like it was like pouring on the toilet. So it wasn't like, hey, it was pouring on the toilet, and it had rotted all the subfloor out in there. And then they were just nasty on the inside, dude. There was stuff growing in the carpet. It was like, what's up? And so they bat out, and it was going to cost us something like $50,000 to rehab the house. Right? Remember, we had 28 into it all at the beginning. So what we decided to do, that was quite a bit, and it had appreciated so much that we were going to make it permanently fixed and sell it with FHA financing. So we did. We went and did everything that was needed to get it permanently fixed and turn around, and we sold it for $165,000. All right. The little lady that was buying it, so that's pretty good. We bought it for $28,000, rented it for 8 years, got all of our money back and then some. Then did a $50,000 rehab on it and sold it for $165,000. Not a bad deal, right?
Yeah.
Well, the second bite of the apple is that while I'm sitting there, this goes back to talking with people and asking them questions. I was asking the lady, I always ask this at the closing table, hey, what's your favorite part of the house and when do y'all plan to move in? She's like, well, I'm not moving into this house. I said, oh, really? She said, yes, I'm buying this as a second house, but I've got this family that's kind of adopted me. You know, their kids just love me to death. And the husband and the wife are, you know, they're a little bit hard on their times. And so I'm going to move them in the house, and then they're going to buy it from me, and I'm just going to rent to them. And I was like, oh. And so I wound up having to go over to the house after closing for some reason. I was like, call me. I will help with anything. And I got to see what kind of situation it was. And I was like, I need to touch base with this person because this is going to go downhill and go downhill fast.
Yeah.
2 months later, she was filing dispossessory on them. And she didn't know what she was going to do. She lived down close to Fayetteville. So she was having to drive up here. Long story short, we bought that house back subject to, and we've got it at an interest rate of like 3.2% or something like that.
Wow.
So at the end of the day, because it happened in 1 year, it really looks like it was a cash out refi as opposed to a sell.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a wild story.
That's a wild story, isn't it?
Yeah,
You can't do I mean, we do stuff like that all the time. It's fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else you want to tell our audience or people watching this video on in the future?
I'm sure I've got all kinds of stuff, but if y'all want to come out and hang out with me, we're going to be there March 19th. What time do we start?
Starts at noon. The presentation probably start about 12:20, 12:30, and then goes to 1:30.
All right.
Fountainhead Top Room, Chattanooga. We're going to talk about lease options. Have you done a lot of lease options? How many of those have you done?
Quite a few. So I don't have a house right now that I won't do a lease option on. They work out great. And what we're going to do is we're going to go over what a lease option actually is. Everybody likes to put that as one word. Lease and option are not one word. It's actually two very different strategies that are coupled together to be able to have some pretty cool results. So that's one of the things I'm going to teach you about. I'm going to teach you some things that you're going to have to probably amend with your normal lease if you're doing a lease option. And I'm going to tell you some verbiage that you're going to want to put into your option. And so if you don't know what either one of those things are, we're going to talk about a lot. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about how you can do some funny things to control property and make situations happen with your option. We're going to talk about some pitfalls that you need to watch out for and some things that people say that's just flat out wrong, and you need to make sure that you eliminate it from your vocabulary. So it'll be highly educational. By the way, I don't sell anything, so it's not like, hey, we're going to have a course right afterwards or anything like that. I'll give you some sure enough meat and potatoes that you can digest on, and then I'll be there afterwards if you want to ask some questions about it. But this will be if you've never had any training on what lease options are, this will probably be a good one. I'll make sure to make it more than just introductory, but I don't want to talk over your head either. So I'll try to hit you on both levels, but it'll be a fun class, I promise.
Yeah, I definitely think people should come out because owner finance and seller finance, it all gets lumped into one category and people mix and match, and each technique's different. And I think learning what a lease option is, how it works, and how to structure it so you don't get yourself in trouble is very important. So
I've heard people, there's just some stuff that you can do that's flat out wrong, and it can get you in a bind if you're not careful. And so I want to make sure that doesn't happen to you.
Yeah. All right. March 19th, Joey will be at the Chattanooga Landlord Luncheon. I hope you guys come out, and I hope this video has been entertaining and useful. If you have any questions, post them in the comments below this video. Joey's in the group, and he can answer any questions that you post.
By the way, this is something else too. I've got a blog that I write every week that talks about all kinds of different deal structure and creative things and things I'm learning. And it's a huge resource. It's been going on this is my 9th year writing it weekly. And so if you want to go check it out, it's free. You can subscribe to it. It's cashflowwithjoe.com. That's cashflowwithjoe.com. And it's got my contact info. If you want to give me a call because you have a question, feel free. I'll give it to you right now. My phone number is 678-986-6813. That number again is 678-986-6813. And if you call me, you're going to call me. Now, granted, it may go to voicemail, and that's not because I'm screening you. I've got 4 kids and a beautiful wife and 2 businesses. And so sometimes I just can't pick up the phone, but leave me a message, tell me what's up, and I'll call you back. I promise. Okay. So either way, you can check me out on cashflowwithjoe.com or give me a call if I can help you out.
If you had to recommend one article on cashflowwithjoe.com, what would it be?
One article?
Yeah. Or what's your favorite ones that you've wrote on there that?
Oh, dude, it's expansive. It's not one of those things where like I've got just one. If you were like, hey, what's a good article on like lease options, I could point you to one. Or if there's like, hey, what's stuff like that. But I mean, like I talk about flipping, I talk about financing, and just so you know, I've never got a bank loan in my entire. We've been full-time investors since 2012, so that's 12 years worth of investing, and I've never gotten a bank loan even to purchase a personal property. So we've got all kinds of creative financing stuff on there. We talk about trailers. We talk about how to rent things out and rent them out in a different way. So I've got a different mentality when it comes to what a rental property is and what's my asset and how to look for those people. Matter of fact, just so you know, when we were doing our stuff, we found out that our end of year stuff for 2023. Actually, I'm curious, Shane, what is a normal vacancy rate right now?
It's not very high. I don't know what our numbers are because we've been picking up new units, so that's skewing our numbers to be more vacancies than, and I haven't ran the numbers on our normal ones, but it's not very high for us. But we don't push renewals as high as we can either, so that probably keeps more people with us, I would say.
All right, so what would be an industry standard? Just curious.
Honestly, don't know. Ashley Cross will be the one to answer that one because she has the bigger company. I would guess anywhere 5-10%.
Mine was 0.53% last year.
Yeah.
0.53. And so the reason why I say that is because we have good people that take really good care of our properties, that pay on time, that are comfortable to work with, and they're good neighbors. And we spend an exorbitant amount of time finding those people before we put them in our houses. And so all that's on there. There's also, Ashley and I self-produced a reality show at one time. There's only 4 episodes of it. Yeah, you didn't know that?
I didn't know that. No,
yeah.
I didn't
It's called What's the Deal? Go check it out. It's on there. You can watch it for free. It's a YouTube thing. But no, we got professional cameraman running around, all that stuff, and it was fun. But then we started having another baby, and we had to belay that, so it didn't get to happen. Yeah. But anyway, check that out. So, but there's all kinds of different resources on there.
Sweet. All right. Well, we are at 1 hour, so we'll wrap it up here. And thank you, Joey, for doing this. I appreciate you giving your time, and we look forward to seeing you March 19th.
Appreciate you having me, man.
All right. See you, man.
See ya.